Okay. Jeff Fallon, could you weigh in if you have good audio from us?
Yes, I have audio
Okay.
and video. Good evening.
Hello, Warren. I see Giebert, Crow, Backhuber, and Shaw.
Good eyesight.
Okay, good. First item first item for tonight is approval of the minutes from 12/20. Need a motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. And we have to approve the minutes of the stormwater utility too.
Up from the joint.
Yeah, you just approved the minutes of WRMC
Right.
from last month, and you need to approve the WRMC's portion of the joint meeting.
Yes, we need a motion for approval of the minutes from the
So moved.
Joint Stormwater Utility Board and Water Resources Management Commission.
So moved. Second.
All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. And the next item of business then is the Middleton Shores redevelopment.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have anybody here from the consulting side of this. This is a proposed redevelopment on the corner of Allen and Century. And it's an existing apartment complex now. This is the existing site I'm showing you. They're gonna split this into phases. So here's Century right here. If we're unfamiliar, this is Allen Court. CVS is right down over here. Harbor Athletic is down on this leg. The first phase, they're gonna redevelop this area and put up a larger apartment building right here. Get rid of the pool, and then the plan for the future is eventually to redevelop this whole site, I guess. This is that southwest corner of the site redeveloped. They're taking up a lot of the interior courtyard, and they're using part of this courtyard as a detention basin. I think that's really just to prevent runoff from this area from coming into their stormwater management system, so they don't have to oversize it right now. And this water discharges through a small diameter pipe up into the conservation north.
Is that picking up offsite water then, Eric?
Well,
Some?
it's not off-site, but it's out of this current
This
phase. So, looking back through the history, this site, it looks like it was filled quite a long time ago. There's a bedrock ledge kind of in the middle that they're running into, and then the rest of it is poor clay soils.
Well, that's strange to have bedrock right there.
Yeah, a little.
I wouldn't have thought that at all.
But when I was putting this together, the last aerial I could get back to on the county's website was 76. I'm almost certain that before I had seen earlier aerials that also showed the site is, filled up. So this is conservancy on the north and on the east edges of it. And what they're doing to manage runoff here, they're directing roof runoff into a biofilter. I think this is more of just a collection area than a formal facility. And then they're doing underground detention and water here.
So they're doing the whole thing piecemeal, right? So they're not doing a plan for the whole at one time.
That's correct.
Is that okay?
It's okay now. What I guess the only thing I want to point out is that I would expect as the rest of this develops, they'll have their numbers for infiltration will probably look worse than this first phase of it does. Because they're going to run out of this green space, I would anticipate. And I haven't seen a plan for the full build out.
Have they done any soil boring off the phase one area or other parts of the site?
I think so. did put the soils data in this. Not sure if I've got a mooring location diagram. Should have put. The soils are hopeless.
The soils are wetland soils? Just,
No, it's like, it's more like clay fill.
Huh.
And also bedrock. I don't think I do have a pouring location.
but yeah, the clay is brought in, right? There's, the parent soil must be, guessing would be wetland.
You would think.
Yeah.
How old are these apartments?
I think they're pretty old. The one in the northwest corner is more recent, but the first three are.
Yeah. We lived on Sunrise Apartments in 1978, and I think that last one was being built at that time, the newest one.
So they weren't built when we had the stormwater. It's in effect.
No, they're
I
right.
don't think so.
No.
There's no stormwater control current.
Yeah,
Well, just looking at this one, it's all clay and that's 15 feet deep.
Okay.
I don't think there was that much fill. But yeah, I can't tell you exactly which one this is.
And where do they hit water? Where's the water table in there?
On this one, it looks like it's 10 feet deep-ish.
I'm surprised that's more shallow. Okay.
There is more soil information that I didn't provide you. They gave a bedrock, contour map and
Okay.
stuff. So what their calcs show right now, not approved. Their target is 62% and they're reaching almost 49%.
for infiltration.
So that works out to a fee in lieu of roughly $3,000.
It doesn't seem like very much money.
No, it does not.
We talked before. That maybe we ought to revisit how much we get. Did the MSA do an analysis of that years ago?
They did, but I don't think anything changed. That was relatively recently, maybe 2019-ish.
So the recommendation was not change anything.
I
I think
never
you're-
was able to recreate what happened with that recommendation. Remember that it's the fee in lieu for redevelopment is half of what it is for new development. And then the
Hmm.
requirement is also half.
Yeah.
So when you do a redevelopment, the fees in lieu are even lower than for a new development, much lower.
The one thing we maybe didn't take into account when we did that study with MSA did it was we now have a requirement that they have to have inspection every 2 years. And essentially by having fees in lieu of, they get rid of that inspection fee forever. So that,
Well, they still have some infiltration going on, so that's,
maybe in this case, they got some, I guess, would they still have inspection then?
Yeah, they would still be
I
required.
guess in this case, then they wouldn't, they still have to have that, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't have any particulars about measuring infiltration yet either. We've talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah. That. Nothing's happened with that, has it?
I mean, the more we wrestle with this whole groundwater issue, the less priority I put on meeting the infiltration requirements.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this a good idea or not anymore? I don't, especially when you're not protecting a cold water stream or, you're in the middle of it.
Well, in this case, it's not going to the groundwater system, it's going right into the lake. So
Right.
it's right next to it, so it's not a big deal.
You're not recharging anything,
Yeah, so
resource.
at the time we put the ordinance together, we didn't have the surplus water that we have now. But it's in the Dane County ordinance too, infiltration, so it's just not ours,
Probably not for redevelopment.
not for redevelopment.
I
Yeah.
want to say we're a little unique in requiring infiltration on redevelopment. Jim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I think that's a little more strict than typical.
Well, one thing that infiltration does do, it reduces the total quantity of water. And we do have a flooding in the Lake
Yeah.
Mendota, so if water infiltrates, it may get to Lake Mendota at a slower
a day or
rate.
two later.
And so we don't have the flooding problem that take place. So I think it's important to keep it and do it.
I mean, it's still good. They're still gonna hit the peak flow requirements, I assume, that's not in jeopardy.
Sure, but that's based off of the currently
Yeah,
impervious nature of the site.
right.
And not something for us, but in light of the fact that those two kids drowned in that pond on the east side, I wonder how anybody's gonna be looking at infiltration basins and whether we maybe should pull some of the demands back. No,
Well,
Good thing about an infiltration basin is it's dry
should be dry.
should be dry, yeah,
and yeah,
as we opposed to, yeah,
as a consultant, we would not. You know, I've heard people say about the kids in Sun Prairie, there should have been a fence. Sometimes that's looked on as an attractant for a kid.
Yeah.
And then it also makes it more difficult for EMS
EMS to get there.
Yeah. I mean, almost everything is, that's
It's-
a double-sided sword, right?
It's a risk.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with TSS production. How do they achieve that?
They're using a biofilter and they've got a wet cell in that underground storage system that'll get them their water quality treatment.
That will require a maintenance inspection.
Yeah, they'll have to enter into a maintenance agreement, just like everybody, every private site.
What do they do for an inspection for something like that?
Underground,
Yeah,
that's still, you know, it's still kind of up in the air. They actually have the wet cell downstream of the dry cell. And one of the comments from Elliot at the county was, why are you doing that? Why don't you have the wet cell first? So they would measure depth every year, depth of sediment. When it reached a certain level, they'd have to clean it.
I guess we've had inspections underground is the Zimbrick Acra. Did we see inspections of that one?
I can't tell you that for sure, but yes, I believe they've submitted at least a few inspections.
Yeah.
It might be tardy.
So what are we looking for tonight?
I had recommended approval of this fees.
This is not concept, it's approval now, even though they're not finished, you're not finished with it.
You would only be approving the concept of allowing fees in lieu. And they have a few more hoops to jump through before they get approval on the whole site stormwater, but
But it wouldn't come back to us again.
no.
So can we approve, assuming right now they're estimating they're hitting 40% of what they're supposed, no, you said supposed to hit 60%.
Supposed to hit 62 and they're at 48.9.
So when they're in that range, they don't come back at 12%, right? Can we approve the fee in lieu of, and unless there's a drastic change in the,
If you want to set a floor to it.
something like that, I don't know what the number, what the right number would be, but you want to just pick a number out of the air, or you want to say something wishy-washy, like substantially, unchanged from their estimate? It sounds like legal.
You'd be a politician.
I'll leave that up to
I mean, if you made it 2/3 of the 62, then you'd be at 41.6, right?
If you set a floor, if you say, okay, 40% is the number, we don't want anything less than that. If you do get less than that, we're gonna revisit this.
Right,
Then they're gonna hit 40.00001, right?
exactly.
You just say close to maybe.
I don't know the answer. I really
I
don't.
think,
I think this infiltration is probably being reached passively, Jim, so
They shouldn't be, there shouldn't be much change.
I wouldn't think so.
That's all I want to guard against.
But the flip side of that is, I think in future phases, they won't be able to reach this high of a
Right,
number.
this is just the first.
That's why
I mean, how are they infiltrating? The infiltrating they are getting is just passive infiltration into clay soil, and they calculated the clay infiltration rates and said, okay, that's what we're getting.
Yeah, I would expect so. I mean, I've said in the past, well, I've got, 50% impervious in the existing condition and 60 in the proposed. I'm reaching, I've still got that 40% passive infiltration that's changed from.
so it's going, the water's gonna move through that clay?
No. I mean, it's just, when you put it into the model, you're telling it you have clay soil.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll give you more runoff, but that's your target is being lowered, same as your.
That's true.
performances, because you have clay soils.
So where's the water going? That,
It's a comparison to the, existing condition. So it accounts for the clay soils that are there now and will be there when they do the redevelopment.
but they are building some infiltration.
No.
Okay, then.
I'm saying
doing anything.
this is probably just from the grassed areas.
Oh,
that
okay.
remain on
Yeah.
site. And,
Okay.
you get a little out of the biofilter.
Yeah,
but it'll probably end up lined. So it's really just what's soaks and wets the biofilter soil and what evapotranspirates
out with the flood retention areas.
vegetation.
To.
They get infiltration out of it. That, is that completely contained?
The underground storage.
No, they talk
facility?
about reversing the flood peaks for managing that. You got a flood retention area.
There's a stormwater basin in the southwest corner there, right?
Yeah,
To take roof water and treat that as,
That's probably a clay line system also, so it's not,
or synthetic liner.
Yeah.
Will end up as one.
so the answer, Warren, is no, I don't believe there's any infiltration being accounted for or being planned on for that basin.
if it's got a clay liner or something else, then what happens if you have back-to-back storms?
It'll drain through a tile.
To drain to a tile,
Yeah.
so it'll be drained after so many hours.
Yeah, it would
Days.
have to meet that standard too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's functioning as a rate control facility also.
yeah. But we don't test it under back-to-back storms. We just have,
Model does that for you in a way. For pollution control, not for peak flow control.
no, I'm speaking of peak flow, yeah,
All right.
Yeah, it's not sized for a back-to-back storm.
yeah.
It's sized for a 200 years.
Chances of back-to-back 100-year storms isn't great, but then we had back-to-back snowstorms recently that were.
Yeah, we did.
There's Ken's on board.
Yeah, I've been here from the beginning, by the way, so
Ah,
I just been quiet.
better add him to the attendance. So anyway, I'll move approval of the fee in lieu of. Period. No caveats.
I'll second that,
But I don't know.
because I don't know that there's gonna be a good number.
Leave it up to Eric's judgment.
Yeah. But we don't put that in the motion.
Okay,
So we have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion's carried.
Okay. Next item. Jeff Bellin was here.
I'm still here.
You are still here. Let's see. All right. No matter. The city is planning on redoing Parmenter roughly between Century and Greenbrier.
Yay. I like out that way. Dozens of times.
Greenbrier is just past the operations center. It's the road that
Okay.
the quarry entrance is off of.
Just before Parmenter ends at the belt line.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, it's a mixture right now of rural cross section and urban cross section. Jeff, I'll let you take over in a minute. The plan is eventually for a 4-lane section, but what's proposed to be built right now is just 2 lanes with an extra wide median that could eventually be converted to a 4-lane section. And Jeff's calculations are, for the full build out with 4 lanes, even though that may never even happen.
Curb and gutter the whole way.
Curb and gutter the whole way. And, Jeff, I guess you can take over. I've got, those excerpted plans you gave me, and I've got your memo. If you want me to flip pages for you, or if you want to screen share yourself, either is fine.
Okay. Well, so evening, everyone. Eric had asked me to put together kind of a summary of what was going on with the stormwater management for this reconstruction project for the committee. So the memo that Eric has up is kind of a summary of what's happening for the project. As he said, there's, about 4,400 linear feet along Parmenter. There's a very small section at the south end that has existing curb and gutter on either side. And then there's a short section, 580 feet of road north of that has, yeah, thanks, Eric. So way down, even further down the screen, this portion down here has got curb and gutter on both sides. And there's a 500, 600 foot section that's got curb on one side. And then the rest of it is uncurbed. So the vast majority of this is replacing a rural ditched cross section with your typical curb and gutter road cross section. As Eric mentioned, the current design has a number of islands that will be constructed along the entire alignment. And at the city's request way back at the onset of the project, they said, let's plan for those pervious medians to be considered a future full build out condition, thereby replacing those pervious medians with impervious lanes. So that's what we've done, so that somewhere down the line, should that ever get constructed, we're not scrambling trying to find additional space to fit stormwater management features. The southern half, you can see in orange, the watershed's in orange. That's the portion of the project that goes south to Pheasant Branch. All the watersheds to the north go to Graber Pond. Yep, that's about the cutoff. There's some offsite area over here that just passes through currently, and that would continue. There's an area up here that crosses an existing culvert north of where you are, Eric, at the operations center and the salt shed area that passes through the street. So there's kind of 3 components of the Graber Pond portion of this project from a stormwater management. A lot of the area to the south is going to come up to a bypass pipe right by Eric's hand there that will bypass through through the
No.
Bell Farms development and go, geez, no, it's been so long since we've been working on this.
Yeah.
I think it bypasses
So-
their development and does it go to their ponds or does it go, I think it
Nope.
goes into their ponds, or does it go straight into Graber?
Goes into Graber.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry about that. And then at the north end, there's another north bypass pipe that'll take some of this areas to the north and some of the watersheds from Parmenter. And again, bypass through the Bell Farms project and discharge to Graber. So those are the kind of the two bypass components of Parmenter. And then there's the third component is some areas that will go to some linear stormwater management features. There's two on the west side within the right of way that are represented by these pink areas. And those are basically dry detention / infiltration basins. And then there's a third one on the east side within the right of way on the north. That's the North Basin. So the stormwater management requirements for the DNR, the city and the county are laid out in the memo. And really what's most of this is from an infiltration standpoint, which I think is probably the criteria of most interest to the commission. These for the three entities, government agencies, the site is exempt. So we're faced with some sediment control requirements and peak runoff requirements. The DNR's interpretation of what's new development versus redevelopment ends up being the most strict requirements. They basically exempt anything that already has curb and gutter on both sides, and then everything else that lacks curb and gutter on both sides is requiring 40%. So kind of prorating that, those requirements, remembering that most of the site has no curb and gutter or just one side with curb and gutter. It comes in at just kind of under 40%. So it's a 38% reduction required. And then we have peak runoff rate control for new development portions for Dane County or the city of Middleton. So the current stormwater management, we've kind of,
Jeff,
Sorry.
question for you.
yes,
My memory's maybe faulty. Isn't there for DNR's criteria that the new impervious areas, they still only require the 40% when you're converting rural to urban, or do they treat those differently?
in conversations with the DNR about this project, their take on it was the street is there basically, right? So the project adding in curb and gutter would be considered redevelopment, and we would apply that redevelopment label to any portions that are lacking curb and gutter on both sides.
Okay, but maybe I didn't say it right, but there will be additional pavement post-project then compared to now, right?
Yes, and that was discussed, that there will be an increase in impervious area based on widening of the road. But again, as I understand it through those conversations, it was all to be considered redevelopment.
Right, so
Yeah.
there
I think you're allowed to do quite a bit of widening. And it's
was some,
not considered new.
yeah, there was some, okay, all right, you guys got it covered.
The alignment isn't really changing. The profile isn't really changing, so I think it kind of falls under this, like Eric said, this wide umbrella of redevelopment. So with the three features described on the east and west side, pardon me, of the roadway, we're able to meet the peak runoff rate control, and we're able to just meet under the current design, the sediment requirement for the site. So that leaves the third portion, again, the infiltration criteria that I think, again, as I mentioned, is probably the most of the most interest to the commission, given this all drains to Graber Pond. So what we've done is for these features, the soil borings on that, or soil test pits on that north basin really don't provide any real potential for infiltration. It's basically clayey, but on the west side, those two basins, one of them has some decent infiltration capabilities or potential, and the other one has slightly less. So using those rates derived from the test pits, we're able to do some infiltration via those basins. And the idea was, look, let's try to get anything we can to infiltrate to reduce the increase in volume that's going to Graber Pond as a result of this project. So again, the approach I took was, instead of calling for bioengineered soil and putting in plant plugs and kind of creating an expensive feature and a maintenance task for the city, I'm proposing to, instead of using that engineered soil, of just using a 2-foot sand layer, and then mixing in some topsoil on the top to sustain some turf grass. And that's why I kind of called these things kind of a hybrid of a dry detention / infiltration basin. But we'll size the low flow outlet so that they're not going to hold water for more than 24 hours. Things can drain through with the native soil infiltration rates. But again, we can achieve some infiltration to reduce that volume. And I compared the existing versus proposed condition for the areas that are draining to Graber Pond, and it's about a 17-acre area in total. And we're actually seeing a very slight decrease in the volume, runoff volume reaching Graber Pond between proposed and existing conditions.
Jeff, when you talk about runoff volume, are you talking about a storm or for a year or what? Is that
Well,
a 100-year storm, the volume of the storm?
Yeah, that's.
yeah, what the table shows is the runoff volumes from the HydroCAD model under existing and proposed conditions for different storm events. And so for all the storm events listed there, the 24-hour events and those different recurrence intervals, there's again a very slight decrease in volume leaving the site or arriving at Graber Pond. Which
Decrease, got better infiltration?
Pardon me?
We're just getting a little better infiltration?
Yeah, just getting enough. And now, granted, it's a 17-acre watershed, and we're talking about, I don't know how many acres offhand are directly tied to the street project, right? So it's you're probably kind of getting overrun by the greater watershed a little bit, but the fact of the matter is what the model is showing is that by implementing these infiltration basins, we're eking out a little bit of runoff, such that under proposed conditions, it should be achieving a slight decrease.
Jeff,
Which frankly, I was surprised at.
Yeah. So I guess I am too.
Jeff, it's not, nothing's official right now, but are you aware of, or have you had any chance to look at the draft SOX standard being developed by DNR for the dry detention basins? And is that of any use to you?
A new one that's coming?
Yeah,
I guess I wasn't aware. I have not seen
It's
that.
still being drafted, but you may want to ask, Eric, but
Roget?
Dan, oh, darn it. I forgot his name. Well, Eric would know. He may share with you some draft language and criteria. I'm not sure it's going to be of any help to you, but just so you're aware of it.
Okay, yeah.
Again, it's only in drafts. It's not even out for review yet, so he may not even share it. I don't know.
And that was a standard for dry detention?
Yeah,
Okay,
trying to get an enhanced treatment. It's
Get a little water quality out of it. It's
trying to get, it's minimal. It's not a. But I'm on that committee and they were trying to squeeze every last drop they could.
sure. Okay, yeah, I can look into that. Thank you.
One thing that, talk about water quality is a chance to look at salt runoff.
Yeah.
So we haven't had much opportunity. We've been talking about trying to reduce the salt runoff into the groundwater in the Graber's Pond. Is this an opportunity to look at some sand? There's no, going through sand, salt doesn't bind with sand, does it? I don't believe so. I think it binds with clay. I think it binds with clay.
Yeah,
So I don't know any way to trap the salt runoff going through an infiltration basin,
No.
Yeah.
but
You had the clay to attract the salt and you plug up your infiltration basin?
Yeah,
don't salt the roads. That's the answer.
Don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer, but I mean, this might be an opportunity to think about. I don't know if anyone's ever looked into that. That talk we had, that's from, I can't remember her name. Did we talk about that at all? I don't think so.
Not for treatment of stormwater. She talked about, obviously application rates
Using salt.
from the county.
No, I mean, assume it's gonna be applied and then you got the runoff and how we're gonna treat it.
And that's. I've looked into this when I was working and I'm not aware of any treatment system for salt reduction from stormwater.
Yeah, I mean,
It just doesn't exist, to my
Yeah.
knowledge.
not a lot of treatment for salt.
you're
There's
right.
not a lot of treatment for salt and
No.
not for other.
Prevention's the only
Yeah,
approach.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
So,
That's one word. You'd make some money.
Mhm.
You could make some money.
Well, there are a lot of communities, I know in New York that are looking at bigger salt problem with a runoff than we've got. And, they got a lot more snow and, they treat it with a lot of salt. And I just wonder if some communities are actually trying to address this problem. I guess I could do a literature search maybe and see if there's anything out there.
Madison seems to have cut their salt use.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that this year. I mean, so it might be good just to talk to them and see what they're doing.
But you're not talking about reducing salt use. You're talking about treating the water.
The runoff,
that has-
assuming that we're gonna
Right.
have some salt on the highway. How can you treat it before it goes into the groundwater and the Graber's Pond?
And I've been to conferences where this has been discussed at length, and I'm not aware of any treatment of stormwater for salt.
You know,
No, but yeah, what Madison's done is they're just getting by with less salt in their approach. So, we ought to make sure we're doing the best we can do.
I just read the neighbor's site and they had like 75 people complaining about University Avenue in Madison. Said University Avenue in Middleton's fine, Madison sucks. That's because they're using less salt, or
well,
maybe they didn't plow as much.
yeah. And of course, if you're not gonna use the salt, you need to plow more, but in order to plow more, you need more labor and you need more trucks.
Okay, just a thought.
Any more questions for Jeff?
This doesn't relate to stormwater or water resource. Is the project gonna stop short of the map showed short of the intersection with Greenbrier? Is that not gonna be reconstructed?
I think that portion was actually rebuilt, a few years ago. This intersection was.
Okay.
I think just south of that existing median that's there. That's all
There
pretty
is.
new.
Yeah, you're right.
And this is probably off topic as well, but it seemed, I recall cross sections where there's a sidewalk / bike path and then also a bike path.
Current plan is to have bike path on the east side that I believe terminates at Schneider.
Yep.
And then heads heads west and joins up, with the path that's
So
alongside
it's
the belt
the,
line.
where they combine, where you get some of this sort of strange stuff. Okay.
And sidewalk on the west side.
Yep.
We need some property acquisition, which is kind of hung up right now.
Okay.
Is the bike path separated or just a extension? of
Yeah.
it?
Separate.
Separate?
It's a standalone with a terrace separating it from the road. Eric, there, are, I think the
Yeah.
plan, some cross tip
Yeah, there's cross
sections.
sections.
Obviously, I didn't look that carefully.
We can look at sections too, David, if you want, but this is,
Yeah, like I said, this is not really for us, so.
So yeah, I guess to that point, just kind of a disclaimer to throw out there that all this information and these numbers that I'm throwing out there or presenting are with the current design. But as Eric said, that there's some contingency based upon some land acquisition and that may or may not impact what space is available for these proposed features, stormwater management features. So I wouldn't say that this is all said and done and finalized, I guess is
still a
what my
work in
message is.
progress.
Sorry?
I said, still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But work's already got a kick at this then, or they?
Yeah, I don't think it's been there for several months, but I think if we can get the property, this design is nearly finalized, right, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah. If they get the property that's required, then it's my understanding is that, and again, I'm not involved with the roadway design, but my understanding is that things are pretty much good to go.
And I think where you have these basins laid out is not outside of the existing right of way.
Correct.
If we need to push that sidewalk in on the west side, then that might reduce the size of these basins.
Exactly.
So
This is not a water resource issue, but why don't we go to 4 lanes right away? Money?
I don't think the traffic numbers support it right now.
The Bell Farm going in, isn't that gonna put more traffic down there?
Apparently not. I mean, it'll put more, but still not to the level where we need 4 lanes.
Yeah,
So it's just an option for the future
it just seemed like
if we get.
an obvious thing to put 4 lanes continuation.
yeah, but
Well-
then you have to maintain it. And you put more salt down.
You know,
Put in bike paths, forget about those.
Hey, Jeff?
sorry? Yeah.
Just, the guy that contacted DNR about that SOC standard is Dan Bekta, Bekta. Dan's the guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's up to him to decide what he wants to release or not.
Gotcha.
Eugene's.
So what do we need tonight? Do we need a motion for approval?
No, this was just to update you. I was not asking for any recommendation at all.
You're open for construction this year, 2024?
It's still just barely possible, but
You don't have land, all that land acquisition you're looking for,
I doubt it.
that's gonna be tough.
I'd be surprised, but it'd be.
And Sean likes to bid things in January.
Right.
I think we have some grant funding, so it's either this year or next year, and we lose the outside funding.
You know, I will throw out there, that like I said, I had proposed a sand layer, storage layer in the bottoms of these basins, for simplicity and cost effectiveness and low maintenance. I don't know what bioengineered soils capabilities are of filtering out, specifically salt, because that's been obviously the discussion. But I know it has far higher filtering capabilities. Whether or not that includes salt someone would have to dig into. So that's if it was shown that would help, that's certainly something that could get swapped in, but that comes at an increased cost to the city for different material, and then you're talking about, you know, probably higher maintenance with plant plugs and different type of vegetation to keep those soils loose. But I'm just throwing that out there as it's certainly something that can be explored.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Jeff.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Jeff,
Thanks.
Thank you.
How come we can't see everybody who's might be tuned in to our?
Yeah, that's my fault, Warren. I think I can pull this out. But I can't see, we can't see their faces.
Can't know
I
anyway.
think that's a casualty of screen sharing. But good grief, I'm no expert with this Zoom and any of this. So that's it, unless anybody wants to suggest something for February.
Could I say something about salt? I don't think Madison's using any salt except perhaps on University. I haven't been on University. So, they are just using sand and on top of the compacted snow. So you might want to just drive through and look at some of that.
What I had heard, Ken, was that they reduced their salt routes this year by another like 6 or 8% or something like that. I don't know.
I don't
like
think
how
so.
many- Well, that's what I had read.
I've read that too.
What parts of the city are taken care of by the county?
Of Madison?
Is University Avenue done by the city or by the county?
That's my question,
University in Middleton
is county.
is county.
Yeah.
And I think it might extend into Madison for a ways, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that I don't know.
We've got Century and Allen and University,
And
right?
University and 14
And
west of
14, yeah,
Cayuga.
yeah.
Highway Q. Heading north.
And Highway Q is county.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Century.
Yeah,
But let me get back to the salt thing. I mean, the streets I drive on here, there's compacted ice with salt on. I mean, with
Sand.
yeah. I mean, there's no a lot of those streets. You don't see the streets. Okay, so they're not salting very heavily at
Well,
all.
Way too cold for salt anyway, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sodium
that-
chloride, not gonna do anything.
Yeah, that could be too.
Yeah, if you drive down Park in Gammon, or High Point, you can tell the city boundary.
Yeah. I just came down Gammon.
Yeah.
But Gammon's not bad in Madison. There's a difference, but it isn't bad. And High Point,
But my residential street, yeah, they did not put salt down, Ken. Just sand at the intersections.
Right.
There's probably a good 3 inches of hard packed snow.
Yep.
on my street.
Yep.
Next week the warm up comes, so I'll be going.
Yeah,
next week's rain will nice smooth it out.
I'm just waiting for that period between when it's, here and when it's not here. We end up with mess.
So for next, we made a number of recommendations for salt to Public Works and the City Council. And in next week or now, follow up on where they stand, what, if any, action was taken.
I don't think the recommendations made it to Public Works Committee yet.
Where do they have to go?
They will go. Just holidays and scheduling. etc.
Yeah. And do we make some of the common council too? I thought we
I
did.
think what we said was through Public Works.
Yeah.
And then they'll come up with something.
Seemed like last year during the winter, we were into this topic too, and next thing you know, the winter's over with and
Right.
we tend to let it go until October again if we bring it up.
Well, I will say I learned stuff when your streets guy was on the call last month, on the screen. And they seem to be implementing salt reduction at steps. Maybe it's not as extensive as other communities, but they aren't ignoring it. Let's put it that way.
Heck, we want
The
to,
calibration work they're doing and
well, yeah, they've been doing that for
yeah,
a while and it's all good stuff. But I think I'm really interested that, was it AB 61? Where, if using the certified
Yes.
applicator that, your risk is reduced, let's put it that way.
right.
We're way off the agenda, but
Yeah,
Topic
it
for next
did
time.
draft a resolution. That went through council last night and was passed. That in support of AB 61.
We could close the meeting. if you
yeah,
want
we could
to.
close the meeting now. If there are any more topics, any more
Yeah.
topics.
We're done with the next meeting
So can
suggestions.
you provide some kind of update, wherever it might be?
In February,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If nothing happens, then just let us know if nothing happened.
absolutely.
Is there anything else we want to talk about in February?
Is there gonna be any needed, I won't be here in February for either SWAB or Water Resources. But I know there's gonna be some discussion at SWAB about the rate study, but not about the combining committees. That's not on the agenda yet. Still,
No,
okay.
I mean, I think with combining the committees. We can put it back on if you want to make new recommendations. Or want to discuss further about, do you
Yeah.
want somebody.
Maybe you better do it now before they go any further.
I don't know if we call another joint meeting or.
Dave, you're SWAB,
Yeah, that would be.
vice chair, right? Is that right?
I'm sorry?
Are you
We
SWAB?
could have
vice
recommendation on
chair
this committee as far as that's concerned.
For SWAB?
No,
I really
no,
think the
Parks vice
process
chair.
is gonna move kind of slowly.
Yeah, we were
don't
supposed to
know
have a
if
committee
I'll
of the
be
whole
here.
of the council on Friday, which got canceled.
I do talk
Yeah.
about it.
I have a hard time
And that was
keeping
the
track of
agenda was to talk. You know,
Parks
just
chair,
agenda.
vice chair.
Yeah.
Nothing
Just the procedure, how you're.
of how we're gonna go about it and which committees were likely to do it. So I think we're kind of ahead of the game.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
And I did see our committee of the whole is gonna be on February 2nd now. They just rescheduled it. So it'll be before this meeting. So there something might come out of that meeting as to what the procedure is gonna be. So if we want that on our February agenda for any here, just any updates from the council as to,
From the cow meeting.
yeah,
Where's that meeting gonna be held?
in council chambers.
yeah, I think talking about sustainability person being on there. I think that'd be worth talking about at least.
Yeah.
Okay, then our meeting's closed.